Nothing builds big shoulders like strict military press. Absolutely.
That's just not true. Like,
Alright, that was probably 0 to 1 RAR.
We're doing a single arm tricep extension, dog. Just go for the extra rep.
Oh, get out of there. Yeah, that's one.
If you train like a bodybuilder, you're gonna look good, but you're not gonna play good. There's two different types of muscle. Empty muscle and
Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 278. It is the third day of the week, aka the Spirit Bomb workout. I am feeling pretty good. But anyway, to the main subject matter for today. Science-based lifting versus spirit-based lifting. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because basically 90% of my Instagram feed now is either a science-based lifter and or a spirit-based lifter, and the clashes that happen between the two. Now, I did have a different name for spirit-based lifter before this, which was going to be a faith-based lifter, which I was going to make comparisons to the entire idea that, you know, if we were to look at this outside of the fitness realm, the science-based lifter is almost seen as like the atheists and stuff like that, while the other people are seen as more religious-like. So, you know, using what people before them have used for decades before them and things like that. So that's the simplified way of putting it. I'll probably get into more detail when we get downstairs, but I just wanted to put that out there first. The main reason why I wanted to talk about this was just because it's a weird, jarring thing to deal with, especially because it's like two sides that can't really reconcile at all. And at the end of the day, most people will just kind of do their own thing until they don't do their own thing, if that makes any sense. I think there are things that you can learn from each, but I think a lot of people have the trouble, and this is the main thing, I think a lot of people have the trouble of getting what's good for them and then throwing the rest away. I think that is the main thing here from both sides, that sometimes there's just good shit that no matter where you're at, that you can just take, and that's it. That's good for you, and then you can throw the rest away. You don't need it. But that's part of it. There's a whole other section of like the idea of weird like parallels between religion versus science in a weird way, which I've noticed that I don't think anybody's really talked about, and a few other things like that. This one's going to be a very heavy gym one, more than normal. So rather than something like life or random subject matter, this is actually within the realm of what this channel was originally about. So it is going to be funny. But anyways, when we get downstairs, we'll get into more details and a few other things that I've noticed about both sides. And I'll give a side of how I feel about it and whatever, because, you know, I don't really care. So, but because I'm not into the entire dogmas of each thing. So we'll talk about that too, because that's realistically getting down to it, it's all about the dogmas. But we will talk more about that when we get to Mother Base. All right, so started this day off with AD press, which was pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand. Science-based lifters versus spirit-based lifters. So the main reason why I wanted to talk about this is because of the fact that there are a lot of similarities and agreeances between a lot of these groups, but I kind of wanted to look deeper as to why there is such a disparagement between the two parties, because at the end of the day, it is lifting. I mean, they both kind of agree on certain aspects of it, you know, the training hard, the getting as much sleep as you can, eating right, you know, all that, all the basic shit, consistency, all that other stuff is correct, but a lot of it comes down to, I feel like it is a very dogmatic system as to which one you are basing your lifting prowess upon, and there are certain aspects that will cross over, but realistically there are places where both are in the weakened state and deserve some criticism, obviously, because certain things won't work for certain people. But I think at the end of the day, that's really the nuance of it all, really, is that some things will work for you, some things won't. It all just depends on your situation, really, and that goes on both ends. But if you ask me personally, I am more of a spirit-based lifter because I am one that doesn't really necessarily care for the science. Realistically, those who do care about the sciences, it's just another thing to care about. It's not necessarily necessary to what they're doing for their training. I think fundamentally, when speaking about it, the issue is that when it comes down to it, is that the reason why spirit-based lifters see those who follow the sciences a little too close to the grindstone, unfortunately, seem to have their ways moved by certain things that come up in studies and or exercises and or other things in order for the sake of, let's say, optimality or things like that, rather than having a strict and or stable idea of what is the fundamentals that work for them. And that is, I think, the biggest key difference between the two, of course, is that fundamentally speaking, spirit-based lifters are people who understand fundamentally what their body is and just kind of consistently do what they've been doing for quite some time. That is the essence of it all, that they have the faith in their own knowledge and things that they know about themselves that are going to be fine at the end of the day. Not to say they don't have a blind side, in which case they could do things in a better way. Of course, that is always something that should be used, but obviously doesn't necessarily have to be applied, only should be really applied when needed, of course, because at the end of the day, no matter how optimal we make certain things, there are things that make it so we can never be truly optimal, in the sense that, like, for example, I am at a home gym. I can't really do what machines do. I can never be the truly optimal monster that the science-based lifter may or may not want me to be. It's a null point, but that's just on my end, of course. But I think that's the other thing, is the idea that the science-based lifter, of course, looks at these types of things and uses a weird mix of ego plus science in order to try to back up their claims, of course, which is fine, but nobody really likes that. It's the idea that you can either choose one or the other, really. And unfortunately, bodybuilding, when it comes down to it, you have to show your results, really. But then that also gets tainted as well. So, and that's kind of a different discussion in its entirety. I don't necessarily dislike those who use the sciences for their own advantages, of course, but I feel like those people who do are fundamentally those who are able to be swayed easily by others and influenced by others. I mean, that's not necessarily for everybody or everybody that follows it, but that's what it seems like. It seems as though that is the fundamental issue and difference between the two parties that are having between each other, is that because of the fact that they are easily swayed by, let's say, new evidence to change something completely different because what they were doing was working, but now all of a sudden this other thing might work slightly better, it fundamentally goes against what the spirit-based lifter is, and that is somebody who knows what they're doing in their sense of their own body and just continuing on and not letting new things come in. But that obviously is the ideal. It's like the difference between somebody being too closed-minded and the idea of somebody being too open-minded, where somewhere in the middle would probably meet better, because that way you will be able to take things that work for you and throw the rest away, which is something that I think, because of certain popularities in certain training styles, have made it so people believe in a certain dogma that works for them or has worked for them or whatever, and just stay with that dogma forever, not realizing that probably things will change as certain variables change. So that is just how I feel about it personally. Also, there is a little bit of a Redditor sense to the science-based lifter that I think that a lot of people dislike, a sense of superiority without any of the backing up, really. And I think that that's the main issue, another main issue with the science-based lifter. It's the r/atheism debate all over again. Sure, you could say something about the spaghetti monster in the sky, but at the end of the day, you're a Redditor, so your opinion doesn't matter. And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercise is not filmed. None exercise is skipped. Also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand here. Science-based lifting versus spirit-based lifting. Now, I've already probably talked about the reasons why they're probably clashing and all those other things, and the idea of taking certain ideas and using them for yourself and then throwing them the rest away because you don't really necessarily need it, or hell, it might not even apply to you. I think at the end of the day, it is interesting that eventually you would want to become someone that is beyond the scope of science in theory, because then you're just relying on your experience on your own body and such, because you've advanced to a point where you are now, no real studies have been done at your level in theory is what it would be like. Sure, you can use some things that science might bring up, but still, I feel like that's the ultimate end goal for most people, I would say. Not necessarily all people, but just generally speaking, they understand what works for them. And I think that's the main thing, is that a lot of people the dogmatism in this entire thing is kind of stupid at the end of the day, because realistically, we're all lifters. That's all that really fucking matters. I mean, more so than not, the fact that we all lift is the thing that puts us in the same category together. And we should never forget that. I feel like there's a lot of infighting between those who are lifters and not lifters. And it's not the fun type, like, CrossFitters, like that's the fun one where it's like you're doing a completely different thing, but we're going to make fun of each other type of deal. But like seeing this now, it's like it's infighting within the same type of people, because at the end of the day, there are others outside of it that probably should be ridiculed even more. I shouldn't point to that lady who said empty muscle right here. I mean, realistically, everybody across the spectrum can look at her and say, what an idiot, so it's something where there are times like that where I'm like, all right, I get it. I understand where the approaches are a little different, but as long as the end messaging is relatively the same, then there you go. Obviously, there are certain things that probably they shouldn't be doing, and then there are some people that are just straight satire that you can just tell are trying to clickbait the fuck out of these people. So that's a whole other subject. I've already talked about that right here. But I'm personally I'm waiting for the next thing to come up, because it seems as though after being in the fitness sphere, just like witnessing it for a good while now, not that much, but at least a good chunk, you just start seeing the repeated fashions of the same things periodically repeated over and over and over again. And it's the circular nature of it, really, where we can't really advance no matter what we try. And instead we have to go back to old mentalities to try to shove them into the new ones, or go too far ahead where we're actually going backwards somehow, which I know that sounds retarded, but if you just get what I'm trying to say is that everything is a trend. This trend is going to go away soon. The new trend is going to come back, and then it's going to just go in a cycle like that. This new trend was something that was popular back in 2005 and 2006, because it seems as though it's going like that, and then in 5 years it's going to be something that was popular in the 2010s. So it's just about 20 years too late, but still we're just going to keep following that thing. And I wonder what will be the breaking point, because at a certain point there has to be a point where somebody just says, fuck it. No, we break the cycle of the stupid shit that we try to repeat in order to get to the top, because then the top only lasts a little bit, and then you move out of the limelight, and then you're gone, and then you're thrown into the oblivion again until your thing that you made popular becomes popular again. It's kind of stupid. I wish there was some type of way that we could figure out as a lifting community to try to say, hey, this is a cycle that keeps repeating. Let's stop it somehow. Let's actually figure out what the fuck are the mechanisms that keep making it go in circles. Because it seems as though nobody really wants to ask that question or try to even answer that. Because realistically, it's never really going to stop. But who knows? Who knows what the fuck the answer could be? But that's a different conversation for a different day. Because realistically, all social medias kind of go through the same shit in an essence or in a way. So, or content, I should say, content circles kind of go in a fashion like that, in a certain way. Not all the time, but somewhat like that. But with fitness, it is very much like that. I am very excited in 5 years to learn about the greatness of ECAAs again, because for some reason they always come up every 10 years. So that'll be fun. But anyways, with that being said, tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. I don't know how this one's going to go. This one's actually a fitness-related one, so we'll see how this goes. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. Stay safe out there. Stay cool. Keep it heavy out there. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.